Earlier this year, Sisters-based Laird Superfood launched a successful initial public offering, raising over $58 million. Andrew McCormick, Laird's general counsel and secretary, is with us tonight to tell the story of how this startup has grown into one of the biggest companies in Central Oregon. Andrew has served as Laird Superfood's general counsel and secretary since February of 2019. Prior to joining Laird Superfood, Andrew was a senior associate at the Denver office of Hogan Lovells US LLP from 2014 and was an associate at Latham & Watkins LLP in London 2 years before that. He received a BA with distinction from Hendrix College, a JD from Columbia University, and an LLM from the London School of Economics. He is joined tonight by Caprielle Lewis, EDCO's Sisters Area Director, who will moderate the discussion and knows a thing or two about their journey. Caprielle is the EDCO Area Director in Sisters, where she's been helping guide companies for over 7 years. Prior to economic development, Caprielle was the co-founder of a startup convenience meal paperboard packaging business. While in college, she assisted in the early development of a California manufacturing technology company. With these experiences, she understands the challenges of business startups and the early development, as well as the daily concerns of small business owners. Advocating for small businesses, she provides resources and advice and cultivates public-private relationships to advance initiatives that help retain and expand local traded sector companies and support entrepreneurship. During her tenure, Sisters has experienced significant population growth, and the heavily tourism-based economy has become more diverse and resilient. With her close involvement from the beginning, the rapidly expanding Sisters-based food company, Laird Superfood, was the recipient of Oregon's Business Development Success Award in 2019. Take it away, you two.
Oh, Cappy, I think you're on mute. It's 2021, still happening, guys.
Sorry, I was on mute. Shannon, thanks so much for the introduction. Andrew, appreciate you being here this evening with us. Wish we were together, but I know what it's like to be between you and Gabby, and I feel like a munchkin in Oz when I'm near you. So really look forward to our discussion this night. I know that our attendees are looking forward to hearing the story of Laird Superfood and Sisters. So let's start there. Can you give us the story, startup?
Yeah. Well, thanks first for having me, and for the attention and help that this organization's given Laird Superfood. We've really enjoyed the partnership, and couldn't be prouder to be part of the Central Oregon business community, especially someone who is very new here. I moved here to join Laird Superfood. I won't commit LinkedIn recitations, but to very quickly go through it. Laird Superfood's a better for you food company based in Sisters, Oregon, as I'm sure everyone has gathered. And I'm our GC, so it is basically my job to advise our founders and our board on all the cool stuff that we're doing. I live in Bend and make the really beautiful commute to Sisters, at least outside COVID times. I guess maybe it'd be a good idea. Should we start, Cappy, with the story of Laird Superfood, or sort of how I got to work with the company? What do you think is going to be best?
Yeah, maybe the condensed version of how it was initiated in Hawaii, and then move into that proof of market, proof of concept, and then definitely we're going to move on to kind of the meat of tonight's discussion.
Cool. So, I mean, I'll admit that when I first started representing Laird Superfood, I was in private practice, and I didn't know who Laird Hamilton was because I grew up in Arkansas, and surfing's not really a big thing there. But so, Laird Hamilton is a well-known big wave surfer, and his co-founder, Paul Hodge, is sort of a serial entrepreneur type, has started something like a dozen businesses. His first one when he was 17 years old. Some big winners, as he'll tell you as quickly as anyone, also some big losers along the way. And where Laird Superfood really came from has a lot to do with who Laird Hamilton is. So Laird has this barn in Hawaii that is sort of like the surfing version of Emmett Brown's workshop from Back to the Future. Like, it's all these random things that he's experimenting with. There's surfboards with like snowboard parts strapped to them. Literally there are like ski boots bolted onto surfboards, which looks like a really good way to drown if you're anyone other than Laird Hamilton. And in the back of his barn, he has like a little apartment spot, and like the biggest piece of real estate in that is this coffee bar, and it's just totally covered with different things that you could experiment with putting into your coffee. And he and Paul are friends; they're surf buddies. And Laird, for 20 years has been experimenting with different stuff in his coffee, and this is kind of mainstream now, but 10 years ago putting ghee in your coffee or turmeric in your coffee was pretty out there. And so that is sort of who Laird is and what he was doing. And he gave some of it to Paul, and they were kind of messing around, and Paul basically packed up a duffel bag full of this stuff, brought it back to his ranch outside Sisters, and spent 18 months experimenting with getting a hold of ingredient suppliers, finding people who knew how to buy great quality coconut milk powder, just really trying to crack into this supply chain that's sort of owned by like Nabisco and Kraft and really tough. But as an entrepreneur, just really going after that. I think he and his mother-in-law spent like, I don't know, he's told me before, 14, 15 months going through all these different formulations. And they finally come up with what is, our original creamer. And basically it started as a mailing list business to friends and family, sending bags of creamer through the mail. And then when everything changed, I think Cappy was sort of when you were getting involved with the company, they basically set up a website, and it went pretty crazy from there. And sort of the rest is history. We managed to find a great spot in Sisters, started hiring employees. In the early days, it was like hand filling bags with, literal hand equipment, and shipping stuff off through the website to people who, at first were kind of fans of Laird Hamilton, fans of the lifestyle, surfers. But now we reach a much broader audience. One of Laird's favorite stories is he was telling me he got on a plane from Hawaii to California, and he sits down next to this like older woman, and he introduces himself, says, I'm Laird, and she looks at him and she goes, oh, that's such an unusual name. There's this coffee creamer that I love that's called Laird. And she had no idea who he was, but knew the creamer company. So that's what we say. We're going to try and make him more famous for the creamer than for the coffee, or than for the surfing, which is, I don't know, it's kind of fun. But so that's we crossed 150 employees this month. As you heard, we IPO'd last year, and we're constantly, continuing that spirit of innovation and trying to launch new products. We launched a protein product. We're, just kind of keeping at it, and that's basically where we're at.
Yeah, I just can remember back to the summer of 2015, and I got a tip from a well-known member of the Sisters community. Hey, have you talked to Paul Hodge recently? And I had known Paul from Golf Board, prior endeavor. Yeah. And I said, no, what's up? And he said, oh, he's just, just experimenting with this coffee creamer. And it looks like it's going to take off. So anyway, it was a community effort to really make things happen and incubate the company here. And I was calling on high school students with food service, food handling certificates to come and help out this new company and Sisters. And it's just been such a fun ride just to see where it's going. And I know Paul's intent from the beginning was to really bring the community together and really support economic development efforts and diversify the economy with these year-round non-seasonal jobs. So it's been super fun.
That's really it. We love to talk about bringing high quality year-round jobs to a recreational mecca. It's like, why do we all want to live here? The recreation, honestly, but why is it important to have a business here? It's to support the economy in a way that's really good for families.
Pretty passionate about this community. Paul is, and then bringing on other members of the team, the Laird Superfood team that from all over the world. In terms of scaling, Andrew, from sort of the beginning, what worked and how did it go from this startup incubated in a food service, prior use business. Metabolic maintenance actually incubated the company for the beginning stage to, financing, and then, your IPO success. How did that happen? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. The honest answer is that there's been like a lot of pixie dust along the whole way, and I mean, it's just we've been a a great combination of being really lucky, having a great team. The metabolic maintenance building that you mentioned was actually a great first example of that. It was like we were looking for a building in Sisters where you could make powdered food in a licensed facility, and there happened to be one ready. And then as that got outgrown, the next space was just kind of there. And the team has really come together in a pretty amazing and natural way, locally, and as you say, from elsewhere. As far as the sort of more corporate financy side of our growth, I'd say the thing that really has distinguished us and forced us to find our own way with fundraising is that, Laird is our biggest stockholder. His name's on the bag. He's not. It's not like we have some sponsorship deal with him. It's him. He tastes every product before it gets launched. He's on the phone with our R&D team, 3 times a day, telling them about some new ingredient from Peru that he's super excited about. He is at the core of the business, and at least our experience in the venture space for food. We found that there was a lot of pressure to develop a one product company and build it and sell it to one of about 6 or 7, major food conglomerates. And that just wasn't what was right for the vision, for supporting, a business with Laird's name on it and that he's involved in. And so because we've been focused on creating this platform where we can develop different foods, creating a business that, Laird's proud to run for the next 50 years, that has kind of led to what started as just friends and family private financing. We did a few early rounds the way most companies do. Our Series A, is fairly well publicized, was led by WeWork, which was an interesting business relationship because at that point, when we were working with them, WeWork was absolutely doing amazing things in terms of their expansion and wanted to bring some of our lifestyle and product into their spaces. So we did do a Series A led by them. They were tremendous partners. They were great board members. Of course, some things have changed there since then, but overall, speaking from our experience, they were really good investors. And as they sort of went into the background, we were really lucky to get an introduction to Danone Manifesto Ventures, which is Danone's venture arm. And as folks probably know, Danone is the largest B Corp in the world. They're an incredible mission-driven, food organization. As far as, massive conglomerates go, I think the only people who, off the top of my mind, would compare would be someone like Patagonia. They're Danone's really incredible, and they supported us. We did a round of financing with them, and then we found it was time to move on to the IPO, and so that kind of took us to the next step there.
I remember having these conversations, early conversations, Paul saying, "Cappy, this one's checking all the boxes." I'll never forget him saying that, and just being so excited. Obviously, he's a serial entrepreneur, but he's really, really determined to stay with us for Laird's name. And so that always comes back in my mind. And then I also remember some early potential investors. We always talk about family, friends, physicians, and fools, and we had some rock stars and entertainers and fellow surfers. So it was an interesting combination.
Our cap table's wild.
I met a couple of them in Sisters, and they're looking around and. So what do you do in this town? It was hilarious.
Yeah, there are some people with pretty impressive IMDb pages. There are people with pretty impressive Wikipedia pages who, got the product because they're friends of Laird and Gabby, and they've decided that they want to, support the business, and they, get involved. Yeah, that fits into the sort of pixie dust stuff. And it's fun. Laird and Gabby are out here more than you'd think. They really like coming and spending time here. Laird is, for the most part, buried up to his elbows out, trying to dig out a snowmobile if he's here with Paul. But they're around sisters. It's great.
I get the rumors of, hey, Laird's at Ray's or Gabby's at Ray's, and the town gets excited. But you have a story as well about when Laird was meeting with some investors right in the beginning of the IPO.
So, no, this is way before the beginning of the IPO. Oh, okay. This was like one of the more impressive founder moves I've ever seen. The first financing that I got involved with, so I guess it was kind of our Series A. I was outside counsel. I flew in from Denver. I'd never been to Central Oregon before. I was very excited to be, in Bend and Sisters. And there are all these bankers from New York and whatnot, some money managers from Boston. We rent out the Sisters Saloon because there wasn't room in the First Street office to get everybody in. So we have the whole upstairs of the Sisters Saloon. Everybody's showing up. All the bankers are in pinstripes. And we kind of start the meeting, and the whole board's there, and it's kind of the board talking to bankers, and all these guys are going around, doing their intro thing, like, I've closed $25 billion worth of transactions, blah blah blah. A little bit of a ego thing going around the room, and Laird's going to dial in by video conference. So there's this big TV at the end of the table, and like halfway through some guy introducing himself, up onto the TV pops Laird Hamilton, and he is wearing board shorts and a cup of coffee and nothing else. And if you've ever wanted to know, like, very quickly who's in charge, the guy who shows up without shoes and without a shirt, like, that's the guy who's in charge of that meeting. It was hugely amusing. And also, I mean, he just sort of sat down and got into the meeting, and that was it. He will put on a suit when asked, and he did actually, he did not show up shirtless to the New York Stock Exchange. But yeah, that was one of my first meetings with Laird.
So with your legal background, Andrew, what changed that allowed a company as young and early stage as Laird Superfood be able to really investigate and be successful with an IPO?
I would start just by saying that I'm part of a kind of a minority view that more companies should go public earlier in their life cycle, and that the valuations that you can get, the benefits of a public currency, there's a lot of benefit to that over the last 20 years, venture capital has done a very good job of managing growth in their own way and valuations in their own way. And we, spoke to a lot of private investors, and at the end of the day, we found that, the growth capital markets were more interested in taking a forward look at a company that was growing quite quickly than private investors who, for the most part, in the CPG space at least, we're looking at kind of a run rate or a trailing 12 months sort of valuation. So yeah, I think it's like it's not quite religious, but like the people who are into small company IPOs, like there are a few of us around at Laird, including some of our backers, and we had kind of the stars align in terms of the right people coming together. Our CFO is fantastic. Worked for a publicly traded bank here in town. Paul really got interested in this. Our former chairman, chairman up to the IPO, had spent his entire career looking at growth companies in the public markets. And I can't point to any one thing. A lot of good stuff came together to make it happen for us.
From ad spend, where Paul was saying, I'm going to keep investing because we're having exponential results, to a successful IPO. And this past year for you, are you having fun yet?
I'm having a great time. I don't get a whole lot of sleep, but it's just been such a cool year. I mean, doing an IPO during COVID is absolutely wild. They kind of give you the New York Stock Exchange to yourself because no one else is there. You're in this giant building and there are like 11 people with you in the whole place. It's been a unique experience, and kind of what a year for it, but it all worked really well. It's a lot of stuff like this. It's Zoom meetings for for the road show. It's Zoom meetings for all the org calls. I've still never met our bankers in person. We will have a closing dinner probably in 2022. It's just a different experience.
The board of a public company is absolutely critical. How do you go about selecting, board members?
Yeah. So I don't think it's a little different than how you well, depending on how you're doing your financing. As a private company raising a bunch of money, sometimes your financing path chooses your board members for you. But if you are in the privileged position of being able to choose them for yourself, I think it's not actually that different. It's about skills and fit and vision alignment, and having a group of people who have a lot of respect for management, but also that it goes both ways, so that when they want to challenge you, that's met with an appropriate level of engagement. We're really lucky. We have a great board. Miley on our board was a growth analyst for 30 years for a major public markets fund investing in the public markets. So she can help those who are kind of newer to the public company aspects. We have the Jeff, the former CEO and now chairman of a number of public companies, including Smartsheet, who is just kind of the veteran business leader that you're looking for. And we have the former CEO of Ballast Point, Jim Beekler, who famously created a really great culture there and did such amazing work. But I would say that it's important that the whole is more than the sum of the parts. It's really a team like any other, and you end up in a lot of meetings with 8, 9, 10 people, and having a really great group makes that really click, and having a not great group, I can imagine. I've heard about boards where it really just doesn't. We've always been quite lucky. I don't know. Does that answer the question, or is there anything more specific I can weigh in on?
Yeah, it brings to mind, the importance of culture, and that does start at the top, and it needs to be developed early. And fortunately for Central Oregon, that tends to be part of the brand of Central Oregon, is these companies that focus on, employee development and culture. And I certainly saw that from the very start. That was a really important piece. I was curious how that translates to this board. And you mentioned that with the team spirit.
Certainly, and it does. It goes back to kind of the little bit of pixie dust stuff that I think, and actually it's something about Central Oregon that I'd say is we find that it attracts really good people. When you're calling someone for some role that we're not having a lot of success hiring into locally, and you're calling someone in whatever, Illinois, and you say, how do you feel about coming to Bend, Oregon all the time, or how do you feel about moving to Bend, Oregon? How they react kind of says something about how the cultural fit is going to be. Like there's a bit of a self-selecting thing where people who are like really stoked to be here tend to be people with a lot of passion and energy about life. And so we really see that heavily in the, just through building our employee base and like maintaining culture. When you go from sort of like, I don't know, 35 or 40 people when I joined to the 150 that we are now, it's, I'm not going to tell you it's easy, and it is a priority. As far as the culture on the board, we've been really lucky, and probably that has something to do with Laird and the kind of business that we are. And we're really small. I mean, we're a really small public company, so it's not like you don't join our board to get super rich. You join the board of General Electric to get $400,000 a year or whatever in fees. So I think the people who want to come work with us, want to mentor our company and help shepherd it toward, the vision that Laird has and that we all have. That's a self-selecting group. And we find that through service providers too. I mean, we had one of the main bankers who worked on our IPO was super passionate about working with us. And he and his wife run a organic milk farm as their side project. And, I don't think we would have gotten a call from them if they didn't have that kind of passion in what they do. So we're, I've probably said this 40 times, but we're very lucky. But there are great people to be on boards out there. It's not all kind of Wall Street stiffs, which I think is the bad stereotype.
Well, I think they are extremely lucky to have found you, and
Thank
I
you,
know
Cappy.
that you contributed much and are an important part, and really are helping in so many ways, Andrew, with your service on the local advisory board for EDCO, all the way through with your council and responsibilities to continue to grow Laird Superfood, to be on every aisle of the supermarket. I know that's a long-standing goal too.
Yeah, we wanted to say that in the IPO, but we got told no because we didn't mean it about the candy aisle, which I'll tell you is the kind of silly conversation you get to have with lawyers when you do an IPO. Do you really mean every aisle? And well, I guess not. So we had to give up that point. But yes, many aisles, a large number of aisles.
Superfood Rolos, or I don't know, Shannon, do you have something that you can contribute? Oh gosh. Well, again, thank you so much. I think we're going to start turning to Shannon here for some questions and answers from
great.
the attendees.
I just have loved this conversation. It's no secret that Central Oregon is happy to have you all here, Andrew. And I'm just so curious. I know that you said you're not sleeping a lot, you're working all the time. Do you have a sense of what it's like to live in Central Oregon? Are you getting out? Are you hiking? Are you like getting fresh air? What's going on over there?
No, I've been learning to Nordic ski this year. I've been an alpine skier for a while, but Nordic is totally new to me. So I'm the guy in the yellow headband who's like completely falling down over and over at the Bachelor Nordic trails. So yeah, I make it out.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. We have a question from the audience. And so I know you're employing, you said you're around 150 people, and that's a huge amount of growth in a short amount of time, which is, I think, for the best of companies, like an uncomfortable process. But the question from the audience, they're wondering if you found it relatively easy or difficult to find workers this past year, given the pandemic's influence.
It's a really good question. I probably don't have as much visibility into that as some people in the company, but my sense is it really cuts both ways. Probably, people who have jobs that they really like are probably stick and put a little more. But at the same time, people who need work, I mean, there are people who need work, and we try to be really, really great employment in sisters, and we've had pretty good luck hiring the people we need. As far as I know, our growth is pretty much on model.
That's great. That's great to hear that. And how about logistical challenges shipping wise? Since you're shipping from sisters, have there been any, how has that been going?
The closest thing that I can think, it's been remarkable how well it's worked. Again, I'm not the person closest to this, but I think we were having a few days of delays early on. USPS was slowing down a bit, but these were all kind of rounding errors in this. At least what was getting to me sort of seemed that way. The bigger challenge for us was that early during COVID, it seemed that a lot of people were coming to the idea of buying groceries online, which is essentially, that's one of the cores of our business. And so just keeping up with volumes was a little challenging, and getting raw materials because they come in by ship was a little challenging, just because of the lead times. It's kind of hard to quickly ramp what you're ordering when it's shipping containers from Southeast Asia of organic coconut milk powder or organic coconut sugar and whatnot. So I think some of that was required some quick thinking early on, but overall, it's been fairly steady.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I'm sure there was just a number of challenges. And I think too, as we are noticing that people are having the time and space to focus more on their health, that a product like yours is going to become more and more in demand because it makes it so easy, right?
Yeah, that's really the idea, is to like meet people where they are, to offer choices that we think are a little better than some of our competitors. from the customer perspective, we think this has been, it's given a lot of people space to sort of discover and experiment, which is really what we're all about, trying new things, whether it's our products or our products, the number of people who tell us that they mix our product with some other, sort of healthy product that they like, we're all about that. It's really fun to hear. And, it's, I guess, one of the benefits of being stuck at home all day. On the topic of COVID though, I should say, I think it's been tough on a lot of people, especially the folks who work in shipping and work in our production facility, because wearing masks all day is hard. Dealing with the additional stress of, loved ones having trouble with COVID, it has been hard. And, they have just really, really stepped up and done an amazing job of, just doing the best they can, being as safe as they can be all the time. And, it is, we really like to think that we have shown how resilient the company can be through 2020, as really a test, and it's been incredible to watch.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just so great to hear. And I just can imagine like companies like yours that are showing some strength and some resilience during this process. Like it must make you so excited for like 2 and 3 and 4 years from now.
I mean, there's so much fun stuff that we can't do anymore. Like we we did a Christmas party via Zoom, which was actually much sweeter and more amusing than you'd think. But it's also it's a sign of the times. I mean, we can't get together the way we used to. It's people aren't allowed to work out at the gym. I mean, they can, but they have to separate and do all this stuff in our gym in the offices. It's you just can't commingle the same way that you're able to before, and it's a bummer.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking forward to the next couple of years. That's for sure.
It's good to hear. I want to say, just before I forget, speaking of mixing your product with another product, the coconut powder in the root cellar bone broth. Like,
Ooh.
highly recommend. You need to just beef up your bone broth.
Yeah, I mean, a
What
lot of people use the original creamer, which is the coconut powder, in curries, and
Yeah.
I've done that, which is kind of the same theme. That's
Absolutely.
interesting. That's great.
Absolutely. And the turmeric, yeah, like this, like to put that in your hydro flask for your next Nordic ski adventure. And you can send me an email thanking me the next day.
Oh,
So Roger actually has a question. Were there changes to the federal tax code in Oregon and the nation since Sarbanes-Oxley? You know what? I don't have that entire question in front of me. Hold on. Were there changes to the federal tax code that made Laird Superfood's IPO easier? There's been a huge drought in Oregon and the nation since Sarbanes-Oxley.
yeah, sure. So the sort of core. So there are a few things that have happened since then, most of which fall under the Jobs Act. And we did do a Jobs Act IPO as an emerging growth company, which look, it's still a significant lift to get there with your accountants, but it does make the accounting and internal audit procedures. It gives you sort of an on ramp to an IPO. The idea being to help, sort of as I was saying, bring people to public markets earlier in their life cycles and make that a little more feasible. So yeah, we did do a Jobs Act IPO, and then there are even smaller IPOs that are called Reg A IPOs. That I've worked on a few of, but was not Laird Superfood, and that's sort of the even more simplified version of things that can allow you to do really kind of a light IPO, but still get a NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange listing. So yeah, I think that was around 2011, 2012 that all that happened, and it seems to be. There's a lot of momentum in the markets this year, and it's probably partially because of how the markets are performing, but I think it's also cyclical between kind of the very late stage venture capital and how that's doing as an alternative to IPOs. And we've really enjoyed watching a lot of other companies go public this year. It's fun to be part of.
Oh, that's so cool. So what about any products in the future that you're thinking about? Any new launches coming?
Oh, geez, I don't know what's around the corner right now that maybe we've announced. I know we did orange guava hydrate, which we're really stoked about. I think our protein's really special. It's a vegan protein that's mostly seeds and nuts, so there's not pea and rice protein or the typical vegan fillers that digest well for some people, not so well for others. But I really enjoy our protein. I also like that it's not like, peanut butter cup flavored or whatever. It's just a normal protein powder. I think our greens product is amazing, and we're very, very excited about our coffee with functional mushrooms, which gets sort of some beta glucans into your cup before you even add creamer, whether it's ours or someone else's. But you should
Yeah,
use ours.
that's the big favorite among my friends are the mushrooms. And if you had to do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm sure there's a thing or two I'd do different. I would have bought a house in Bend 2 years ago instead of renting. That's what I would have done differently.
Yeah, I moved here in 2009, and I cannot forgive my friends back home for us not coming up with like a little something in 2011 when literally everything was $1.99. Tragic, but here we are.
I'm very grateful to my landlord, though, in case he's watching.
Me too. I'm so grateful to my landlord as well. So I'm glad to hear that. Well, in true pub talk tradition, we've got the pub talk stein for you. So I'm gonna hand this off to Kathy. The next time we're able to gather in person, she'll get you a fill. This is yours for life. It's
Awesome.
quite heavy, it's quite large, so you will be hydrated. It's just awesome to have you. And Kathy, I just love the contribution you were able to make. It's really nice to see you on the screen. I know you do so much behind the scenes for us, so this was just such a treat. And I am just so excited to continue watching Laird Superfoods grow. This is it's incredible to have you all here.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks.